The tie I personally tied for my husband appeared in a social media post by his female assistant. Under the camera lens, that expensive tie was used as a prop, ambiguously covering her revealing chest. The caption read, "Someone always uses the excuse of giving everyone flowers to prepare special surprises just for me. Thank you, Big Boss." In the background of the photo was the Italian handmade sofa I had specially ordered for our wedding anniversary. The sapphire ring in her hand, labeled as "Company Welfare," was the unique piece Ocean's Tear that I missed out on at an auction 3 months ago. I stared at the familiar pattern on the tie and dialed my husband's number, my voice unnervingly calm. "Honey, did you have a good time tonight?" On Valentine's Day, my husband Ryan and his brainchild, Yen Brothers Group, once again dominated the local trending topics. The hashtag is "the boss with the most sense of ceremony." The reason is simple: Ryan again ordered an expensive bouquet of red roses for every employee in the group, regardless of gender. The media praised him as visionary and compassionate, the ideal boss every worker dreams of. My phone was flooded with congratulatory messages from family and friends. "Serena, your husband is so amazing. We're so jealous. Ryan is such an incredible man, you must have saved the galaxy in your past life." I stared at these messages, my fingertips turning cold. Opening Vivian's assistant's WeChat moments, the latest update said it all. One photo was at an upscale Western restaurant. She was holding the company standard bouquet of roses but deliberately parted the petals to reveal a massive sapphire ring. The caption read, "Received the first Valentine's Day flowers. Someone always uses the excuse of giving everyone flowers to prepare a special surprise just for me. Thank you, Big Boss." I recognized the ring at once. It was a unique piece I had seen at a jewelry auction 3 months ago, Tears of the Deep, with a starting bid of $5 million. At the time, a mysterious buyer used a phone bid to drive the price up to $8 million and snatch it away. Turns out, that mysterious person was my dear husband, Ryan. Scrolling down, I found a post she made 2 months ago, the first milk tea of autumn, with a screenshot of a 52,000 yuan transfer record, the recipient being her. She had written, "Thank you, boss. The milk tea is so sweet." A month ago, she shared the first strawberry ice cream cone of summer, along with a 30-day paid leave for high temperatures redemption voucher from the company. The signature on it, written in a flamboyant style, was Ryan's handwriting. The comment section was filled with amazement and envy over the benefits at Yen Brothers Group. "Oh my God, is Yen Brothers Group still hiring? Is it too late for me to submit my resume now? What kind of heavenly company benefit is this? They pay you and give you time off. Vivian, what kind of good karma did you accumulate in your past life? I know about buying milk tea and ice cream cones for all employees, but regarding this $52,000 transfer and the 30-day vacation, how come I, as the wife and business owner, have no idea?" In the latest photo from the Western restaurant, the man sitting across from her only shows half of his chest. That navy blue striped tie is the very one I tied for Ryan with my own hands this morning. The angle of the photo is cleverly suggestive, the corner of the tie faintly brushes against her prominent chest. I felt a wave of nausea. Holding on to my last shred of dignity, I dialed Ryan's number. There was some noise on the other end of the phone, music, the clinking of cutlery, and the alluring laughter of a woman. "Hey, Serena, what's up?" Ryan's voice was as gentle as ever. "I'm working overtime at the company, there's an urgent meeting tonight, so I might be back a bit late." His lies rolled off his tongue effortlessly, so practiced it was heartbreaking. I clenched my phone tightly, my nails digging deep into my palms, but I forced myself to speak in the calmest tone. "Is that so? Then can you take a photo of the meeting room and send it to me right now? Mom just called, asking how we spent Valentine's Day. I want to post something on social media to shut her up." Ryan paused for a moment, seemingly caught off guard by my request. "Serena, don't be silly. We're in a meeting. Please be serious." His tone carried a hint of impatience. "Oh? A meeting, is it?" I let out a light laugh, though it didn't reach my eyes. "I thought you were with your Vivian, trying on that $8 million tier of the deep sea. The other end of the phone went dead silent. I could imagine his face draining of all color at that moment. "Ryan," I said, each word clear and deliberate, my voice soft but carrying immense weight. "You have 10 minutes to appear before me. Otherwise, I'm afraid tomorrow's trending news won't be about the most ceremonial boss, but about the president of Yen Brothers Group cheating on his assistant while married." With that, I didn't give him any chance to react and hung up the phone directly. I tossed my phone onto the sofa, staring at the neon lights of the city outside the window. For the first time, the nightscape of this commercial empire we had built together felt so cold and glaring. In less than 10 minutes, Ryan's car screeched to a halt at the villa entrance like a crazed beast. He rushed inside in a disheveled state, with a light sweat on his forehead and his tie askew. That handsome face, once adored by countless media outlets, was now etched with panic and disbelief. "Serena, let me explain." He began with that worn-out, cliched opening line. I sat on the sofa without moving or even looking at him, simply turning my phone screen to face him. On it was a screenshot of Vivian's social media post. "Explain? Explain why this tie ended up around her neck. Or explain why you used our joint marital assets to buy her an $8 million ring." My voice was calm, betraying no emotion. The more composed I seemed, the more flustered Ryan became. He's used to seeing me gentle and obedient, not the coldness and distance I display now. He walked over, trying to grab my hand, but I turned away to avoid him. "Serena, things aren't what you think. Vivian and we're innocent." He anxiously defended, "That ring was just a company reward. She had an outstanding performance this quarter and secured several major projects for the company. It's what she deserved." "Oh? Really?" I finally looked up at him, my eyes filled with mockery. "Which major project required you to deliver the reward to a Western restaurant and into her hands? Ryan, when did our company's reward policy change? How is it that I, the largest shareholder, didn't know? Yen Brothers Group belongs to you, but don't forget, 50% of the company's shares are under my name. If it weren't for my father staking his entire fortune to help you overcome that crisis back then, do you think you'd be where you are today?" My words struck like a blade, precisely piercing his most vulnerable sense of pride. Ryan's face instantly turned ashen. What he detests most is when others mention that his success was built on my family's backing. Over the years, he has desperately tried to shape himself into a self-made business genius, forgetting the very foundations he came from. His hand, resting at his side, unconsciously began tapping his fingertips against the seam of his trousers. This habit, formed during his college days, surfaced whenever he felt guilty or nervous. "Serena, after all these years of being together, you'd rather believe a dubious photo than trust me?" He began playing the emotional card, his tone filled with hurt. "Feelings?" I let out a bitter laugh as if hearing the most absurd joke. "Ryan, our relationship died the moment you put Tears of the Deep on another woman's hand." I stood up and walked toward him step by step, locking eyes with him. "Let me ask you one last time, what exactly is your relationship with Vivian?" He retreated step by step under my intense gaze, his eyes darting around, still repeating that empty phrase, "We are innocent." "Good, very good." I nodded, pulling out a document I had prepared earlier from under the coffee table and slapping it against his chest. "If you're truly innocent, then sign this loyalty agreement supplementary clause." Ryan looked down and his face turned pale. The document was crystal clear in black and white. If Party B, Ryan, during the duration of the marriage, engages in any act of marital infidelity, including but not limited to forming inappropriate relationships with members of the opposite sex or gifting significant assets, Party A, Serena, has the right to demand that Party B leave the marriage with nothing and unconditionally transfer all shares held in Yen Brothers Group under his name. "Serena. What do you mean? Are you investigating me?" Ryan's voice suddenly rose sharply, his gentle facade completely torn away, revealing the true face of his anger and embarrassment. "I don't need to investigate," I looked at him coldly, "I'm just giving you a chance to clear your name." "Well, Ryan, don't you dare sign it?" This was no longer about giving him an opportunity, it was a move to corner him. Signing would mean admitting that he wouldn't dare to make such a mistake again in the future. Not signing would mean admitting right now that he had a guilty conscience. The air in the living room seemed to freeze, leaving only the heavy sound of our breathing. I looked at his constantly shifting expression, feeling a profound sorrow in my heart. The young man who once ran across half the city on a cold winter night just to buy me a bowl of hot porridge had finally died in the passage of time and the pursuit of money. Ryan stared intently at the agreement, as if trying to bore a hole through it with his eyes. His chest heaved violently, clearly in the midst of a fierce internal struggle. "Serena, do you really have to make things this ugly?" He gritted his teeth, the words forced out between them. "Ugly?" I laughed, a somewhat desolate laugh. "It was you who made things too ugly, Ryan. You let that woman trample all over my dignity, our family's dignity, and now you ask me why I'm making things ugly?" "I told you, it was just a reward," he was still stubbornly insisting. "What a fine reward." I cut him off directly. "Then let me ask you, when you gave milk tea to all the employees, why did she get an extra 52,000 yuan transfer? When you handed out ice cream cones to everyone, why did she end up with 30 days of paid leave? Ryan, do you really take me for a fool who ignores the world and can be easily fooled by you?" With each word I spoke, his face grew paler. He thought I would never know these details. He believed he had executed everything flawlessly, using the company benefits as a fig leaf to cover his dirty deeds. He opened his mouth but couldn't utter a single word. Looking at his flustered and speechless appearance, I felt no satisfaction in my heart, only endless exhaustion. "Sign it," I handed the pen before him, my tone leaving no room for doubt. "Sign it, and I'll act like today never happened. We can go back to how things were before, pretending to be that loving, model couple in front of others." "What if I don't sign?" He raised his head, a flash of cruelty flickering in his eyes. "Don't sign?" I met his gaze without flinching. "Then we'll see you in court tomorrow to discuss the division of marital property and share dilution." "Ryan, care to guess how many oceans tears the stock price of Yen Brothers Group would drop if our scandal blows up?" This sentence was the final straw that broke his back. Yen Brothers Group was everything to him, his life itself. He could live without me, but he absolutely could not lose Yen Brothers Group. He snatched the pen from my hand, and in his forceful grip, the tip scraped a long line across the document. He glared at me with a look so intense it seemed he wanted to devour me whole. In the end, he still gave in. He lowered his head and scribbled his signature in the Party B section of the agreement. After signing, he slammed the pen and documents onto the coffee table with a loud bang. "Serena, are you satisfied now?" he sneered. "Is it really that fun to tie me down with such tactics?" "Whether it's fun or not isn't for you to decide," I replied. I picked up the signed agreement, carefully blew on the ink, and then locked it away in a folder. "Ryan, remember the signature you made today. From now on, if I ever find any ambiguous connections between you and Vivian again," I paused, walked up to him, and gently straightened the necktie that had been tugged askew. My actions were tender, but my words were icy and cutting. "I'll have you kicked out of the Yen Brothers Group." Through the silky fabric, my fingertips could feel the tense muscles in his neck. He looked at me, his gaze complex, filled with anger, resentment, and a fear I couldn't decipher. "All right, it's getting late. Go take a shower." I patted his shoulder as if that intense confrontation had never happened. "We have a board meeting tomorrow. Don't let anyone see you looking worn out." I turned and walked toward the bedroom, leaving him with a resolute back. I knew this war had only just begun. Ryan wasn't the kind of man to admit defeat easily. Signing that agreement today was just a temporary measure. In his heart, he must be planning how to fight back. And I was already prepared. "Ryan, do you still think I'm that Serena who only revolves around you?" "You're wrong. It was you who taught me what cruelty truly means." The next morning, I woke up early and put on a refined, capable makeup. Chosen a sharp-cut Chanel suit, I looked full of presence. When I went downstairs, Ryan was already sitting at the dining table. He had faint dark circles under his eyes, looking as if he hadn't slept well all night. When he saw me, his eyes dodged slightly, then quickly returned to their usual gentleness, as if last night's argument had been a dream. "Serena, morning." He even smiled at me. I ignored him, walked straight to the dining table and sat down, helping myself to breakfast. The atmosphere was so awkward it could drip water. "Will you be attending this afternoon's board meeting?" In the end, he was the one to speak first. Of course, I wiped my mouth with a napkin and looked up at him. How could the major shareholder miss such an important meeting? He seemed to let out a sigh of relief, then cautiously asked, "So, what about Vivian's appointment?" I thought to myself with a cold laugh. So this is where he was going. Vivian, the apple of his eye, had outstanding performance this quarter. He planned to officially promote her to deputy director of the marketing department at today's board meeting. "I think her appointment needs further discussion," I said calmly. Ryan's expression darkened. "Why?" "Her abilities are evident to all. She has created immense value for the company. Promoting her is only natural." "Really?" I set down my knife and fork, leaning slightly forward and staring into his eyes. "Created value for the company, or created emotional value for you personally? Ryan, don't forget, the company is yours, but it's also mine." "I disagree, and this matter won't pass." "Serena. Stop making unreasonable demands," he lowered his voice, carrying a tone of warning. "Am I making unreasonable demands?" I stood up, looking down at him from a higher vantage point. "Ryan, you're forcing my hand. Either have her leave Yen Brothers Group, or we'll meet in court. The choice is yours." After saying this, I picked up my clutch bag, stepped out in high heels, and left the villa without looking back. I knew he wouldn't choose the latter. The board meeting at Yen Brothers Group had an atmosphere that was unprecedentedly tense. I sat next to Ryan, listening expressionlessly to the reports from each department. When it was the marketing department's turn, Vivian, dressed in professional attire with flawless makeup, stepped forward. She looked utterly pleased with herself, completely unaware of what she was about to face. After the presentation concluded, Ryan cleared his throat and said, "Assistant Vivian has performed exceptionally well this quarter, securing a strategic partnership with Huachuang for the company. I propose promoting Vivian to the position of Deputy Director of the Marketing Department." As soon as the words were spoken, a murmur swept through the conference room. Everyone knew Vivian was a favorite in Ryan's circle, so the proposal came as no surprise. However, at that moment, I gently tapped on the table. The crisp sound drew everyone's attention to me. "I object." The two words landed with a resounding thud. Ryan's expression instantly turned ashen. Vivian stared at me in disbelief, her eyes filled with confusion and grievance. Serena, a director with a good relationship with Ryan, spoke up, "Vivian's abilities are evident to all. Don't you think your actions are somewhat inappropriate?" "Oh? William thinks it's inappropriate?" I smiled, took out another document from my clutch, and distributed it to every director present. "This is something I compiled overnight. Please take a look." The directors took the documents with confusion, opened them, and their expressions immediately changed dramatically. The document details all the assets that Vivian has received privately from Ryan under the guise of company benefits since her employment. From the 52,000 milk tea allowance to the 30-day paid vacation and even the project bonus, a sapphire ring worth $8 million. Each item is clearly documented, complete with transaction records and supporting evidence. "Everyone," my voice cut through the quiet of the conference room, clear and cold. "Ryan used the company's funds to provide Vivian with such generous special case benefits. I'd like to ask, does this comply with the financial regulations of Yen Brothers Group? Or perhaps everyone present has enjoyed the same treatment?" No one dared to speak. For the Huachuang project, as far as I know, the preliminary negotiations and proposal development were all handled by the market department's Team A. How is it that when it came time to sign the contract, all the credit went solely to Vivian? I looked at Vivian, whose face had turned pale, with a sharp, knife-like gaze. Vivian, could you explain to everyone how you single-handedly managed to win over Leo from Huachuang, who is notoriously difficult to deal with? Was it at the dinner table, or somewhere else? My words were full of innuendo, and Vivian's face instantly turned the color of liver. I didn't. She stammered in defense, her eyes brimming with tears, looking pitifully toward Ryan, hoping he would bail her out. But at this moment, Ryan was like a clay idol crossing a river, barely able to save himself. Seeing the director's suspicious and scrutinizing gazes, he knew the tide had turned. Enough. He suddenly slammed the table and stood up. This matter is my personal problem and has nothing to do with Vivian. All the decisions were made by me. He wanted to take all the responsibility onto himself to protect the one he loved. Unfortunately, I wouldn't give him this opportunity. Such a personal problem of yours, I stood up and confronted him. Ryan, you used company funds to cover up your personal affairs, that's embezzlement. Do you think anything good will come of it if this matter is reported to the Securities and Exchange Commission? Ryan's body swayed slightly, almost losing his balance. I looked at him and announced my decision word by word. I propose to immediately remove Vivian from all her positions at Yen Brothers Group and recover all improperly distributed assets. At the same time, an internal investigation team should be established to thoroughly examine Ryan's financial conduct during his tenure. Does anyone have any objections? The entire meeting room fell into complete silence. The outcome of the board meeting was beyond any doubt. Faced with solid evidence, no one dared to stand on Ryan's side. Vivian was announced to be fired on the spot and was required to return all improperly obtained gains, totaling over 10 million, within a week. Although Ryan retained his position as president, he had all financial approval rights suspended and was required to undergo investigation by an internal review team. This effectively stripped him of real power. After the meeting, Ryan erupted in fury at me in his office. He smashed everything on the desk that could be broken, roaring and raging like a trapped beast. Serena! You've ruined me. How could you ruin me for some unrelated woman? I watched his outburst with cold eyes, feeling utterly alienated. An unrelated woman? I retorted. Ryan, in your heart, isn't she your exception and surprise? He was left speechless by my words, only able to glare at me with bloodshot eyes. What do you want? He asked, panting heavily. I don't want anything, I walked up to him and said calmly. I'm just taking back what belongs to me. Ryan, this company isn't yours alone. You have no right to use my money to support your mistress. I haven't done that, he continued to argue. Whether you have or not, you know in your heart, I couldn't be bothered to argue with him any longer. From today, I will take full charge of the company's affairs. You, just cooperate with the investigation team properly. After that, I turned and walked away. Serena, he called out behind me, you'll regret this. You will definitely regret it. I did not look back. Regret? From the moment I discovered his betrayal, the word regret no longer existed in my dictionary. Over the next few days, I swiftly carried out a major purge within the company. All of Ryan's confidants, those who usually helped him deceive and cover up his illicit affair with Vivian, were either transferred away from key positions under various pretexts or directly dismissed by me. The entire Yen Brothers Group almost underwent a complete reshuffle. Ryan was sidelined and could only watch helplessly as I dismantled his influence bit by bit. He tried several times to reach out to me, but I turned him away each time. Vivian's situation was even more difficult. After being expelled from Yen Brothers Group, she was branded as a homewrecker and embezzler, becoming infamous across the entire industry. No company dared to hire her. The 10 million yuan in recovery fees weighed on her like a mountain, leaving her breathless. All the properties and luxury goods under her name, gifts from Ryan, were now being taken back. From a glamorous and powerful executive assistant, she had overnight become a despised outcast with nothing to her name. She called me, crying her heart out on the phone, begging me to let her go. I know I was wrong, Serena. I truly realize my mistake now. Please, I beg you to be merciful and spare me. Spare you? Listening to her sobs, I felt nothing but irony. Back when you were so comfortably spending my husband's money, driving the car he bought you, living in the house he paid for, did you ever consider leaving a way out for me? I genuinely love Ryan, she continued to defend herself. Love? I sneered. What you love is his money, his status, and your own vanity. Save your cheap excuses, Vivian. If you can't return the money within a week, we'll see each other in court. I hung up the phone and blocked this number. Dealing with such people, any soft-heartedness is cruelty to oneself. I thought the matter would end there, but I underestimated Ryan's shamelessness and Vivian's madness. A week later, I did not receive Vivian's repayment, but instead faced an overwhelming wave of online smears. Countless marketing accounts and hired trolls are spreading my dark history wildly across the internet. They claim that I come from a humble background and married Ryan through underhanded means, calling me a scheming woman who climbed the social ladder. They accuse me of being extravagant and arrogant after marriage, suppressing my husband and branding me as a vicious matriarch. They even twist the fact that my father funded Ryan's startup, claiming I forced him into marriage using my family's influence, portraying Ryan as a pitiful live-in son-in-law who has been living under my shadow all these years. Meanwhile, Vivian was portrayed as an independent, strong-willed modern woman who bravely stood up to resist my tyranny. In an instant, public opinion online completely reversed. I went from being a victim to a perpetrator. Countless netizens, unaware of the truth, flooded my social media accounts with insults and attacks. So it turns out it's a story of a venomous wife and a poor son-in-law. We misjudged Ryan. This kind of woman is terrifying. She treats men as tools and even wants to destroy him. Support Vivian. Stand up against the capital's villainous. Reading those vile comments, I was trembling with rage. I didn't even need to think, it was clear Ryan was behind all this. He wants to use public opinion to smear me and force me to give in. He knew me too well, aware that my reputation was what I cared about most. Just then, my assistant knocked and entered the room with a grave expression. Serena, this is bad news. I've just received word that several brands we've been collaborating with have unilaterally announced they're terminating their contracts with us. The company's stock price has also started to plummet. Ryan's counterattack had come faster and was harsher than I had anticipated. He is trying to cut off the water supply beneath the cauldron, to destroy me and to ruin Yen Brothers Group. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. I understand, I said to my assistant. You can leave first, let me think it over. My assistant gave me a worried glance, then stepped out. I was the only one left in the office. I walked over to the huge floor-to-ceiling window and watched the endless stream of cars below. Ryan, do you think you can bring me down like this? You've underestimated me, Serena. I took out my phone and dialed a long-forgotten number. After the call connected, a slightly hoarse male voice came from the other end. Hello? It's me, Serena, I began. Nolan, I need a favor. The man on the other end of the line, Nolan, was once a student my father had supported, and now he is one of the top private investigators in the country. He keeps a low profile but is exceptionally skilled at what he does. I briefly explained the whole story from start to finish. After listening, Nolan fell silent for a moment and said, No problem. Give me 3 days, and I'll dig up all the dirt on Ryan and that Vivian. I guarantee it'll be 100 times juicier than what you found online. Good. I hung up the phone, a renewed fighting spirit burning in my eyes. Ryan, Vivian, your performance should come to an end. Now it's my turn to take the stage. Nolan's efficiency was astonishingly high. In less than 3 days, an encrypted file was sent to my email. I opened the file, and its contents left me dumbfounded. The file contained not only intimate photos and videos of Ryan and Vivian in various settings but also explicit audio recordings from the company office, hotels, and even our marital home. In the recordings, Ryan showered Vivian with affection and sweet words. Don't worry, Vivian. Once I get rid of Serena, that old hag, the entire Yen Brothers group will be ours. That woman, what does she have besides a bit of money? Old and lacking charm, unlike my Vivian, who's so fragrant and soft. Hold on a little longer, my dear. Soon, you'll be Mrs. Ryan in name and title. And Vivian, in her delicate and charming voice, kept encouraging Ryan. Ryan, when are you going to divorce her? I don't want to keep sneaking around like this anymore. Are you sure it's okay to transfer the company's funds to me? What if she finds out? Don't worry, I've already hired trolls. I guarantee we'll ruin Serena's reputation and make her leave with nothing. Listening to their foul words, my heart felt as if it had been soaked in ice water, cold and hard. I had always thought Ryan was only seeking a fleeting thrill. Yet I never expected that they had planned everything in advance, wanting to drive me to ruin. Well, what a perfect pair of scumbags. In addition to this, the file contained even more explosive information. It turned out that Vivian was not some innocent college student from a respectable family at all. She had dropped out of high school, drifted through society, had plastic surgery, worked as an escort, and led an extremely promiscuous life. Her approach to Ryan was a meticulously planned scam from the very beginning. As for Ryan, he was not as flawless as he appeared either. Behind my back, he had invested in several projects, all of which ended in complete failure. To cover the losses, he even embezzled a large sum of company funds. This time he was eager to promote Vivian not only because of their personal relationship but also because Vivian helped him connect with an underground bank, securing a high-interest loan to temporarily cover the financial gap. He attacked me publicly to force a divorce, aiming to push me out before I discovered everything, so he could smoothly take full control of Yen Brothers Group and use the company's assets to repay the unaffordable high-interest loan. A clever escape plan, a skillful use of others to eliminate me. Ryan, you really planned this well. I closed the file, the fury in my chest nearly boiling over. But I knew this was not the time for anger. I sorted this evidence into categories, sending one part to my legal team and another to a trusted financial journalist. Then, I updated a post on my social media feed, containing only a single image. It was a photo of Ryan and me during our college years. In the picture, he wore a washed-out t-shirt, his smile youthful and sincere. I leaned against him, my eyes filled with love. I captioned it, 10 years as husband and wife, strangers in a single day. Ryan, may your future be bright. This was my final farewell to him. It was also the prelude to my declaration of counterattack. My circle of friends was like a stone thrown into a calm lake, instantly stirring up waves upon waves. Everyone caught a whiff of something unusual. And Ryan, the moment he saw my post, completely panicked. He frantically called me, sent messages, but I didn't answer a single one, didn't reply to a single one. The more he acted this way, the calmer I felt inside. Early the next morning, my legal team formally filed for divorce in court, applied for property preservation measures, and froze all of Ryan's assets. At the same time, that financial journalist published an in-depth report titled, The Capital Scam of the Humane CEO, revealing the shocking truth behind Yen Brothers Group. All the evidence provided by Nolan was presented one by one in the report. Ryan cheated on his wife, embezzled company funds, and incurred a massive debt from high-interest loans. Vivian fabricated her resume, led a promiscuous private life, and orchestrated fraudulent schemes. Each word struck like a heavy hammer, crashing down hard upon Ryan and Vivian. As soon as the article was published, the entire internet erupted in uproar. Netizens who had previously been cursing me as the vicious matriarch instantly shifted their focus, launching a frenzied attack on Ryan and Vivian. Ryan and Vivian, get out of the business world, feel sorry for Serena, the most shameless couple in history. One by one, these hashtags skyrocketed to the top of the trending charts, their popularity dozens of times higher than the previous most ceremonious boss. The stock price of Yen Brothers Group plummeted in response, hitting the daily limit within less than 10 minutes of the market opening. Countless partners called, demanding contract terminations and compensation. Banks also came knocking, demanding early repayment of loans. Ryan's business empire, built over many years, faced the danger of collapse in just one day. He completely broke down. He rushed to the company to find me, but was stopped by security at the entrance of my office. He was screaming like a madman outside, begging me to see him. "Serena! Come out! You wicked woman! Give everything back to me! Serena, I was wrong, I really was. Could you give me another chance? Let's not get divorced." I sat in the office, listening quietly through the thick door panel to his crying and cursing, unmoved. Chance? He lost all chances on that Valentine's night when I discovered his betrayal and when he and Vivian plotted to have me killed. The assistant came in and cautiously asked, "Serena, shall we call the police?" I shook my head and said, "No, let him cause a scene. The bigger, the better. Let everyone see what kind of person this so-called godlike boss they once admired truly is." The farce with Ryan continued all the way until the afternoon. In the end, the police arrived and forcibly escorted him away from the company on charges of disrupting public order. Watching him being dragged away by 2 police officers, his disheveled and deranged figure left me feeling completely unmoved. "Ryan, you planted the seeds yourself, and now you must taste the bitterest fruit of your own making." Ryan's fate was even more tragic than I had imagined. Embezzlement of public funds, unexplained sources of huge wealth, and the compounding interest of high-interest loans, with these multiple charges combined, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Yen Brothers Group, due to his scandal, was completely disgraced and on the brink of bankruptcy. In the end, with the support of the board of directors, I stepped in to acquire all of Ryan's shares, becoming the sole owner of Yen Brothers Group. As for Vivian, she was also sentenced to 5 years for her involvement in fraud and extortion. That face she proudly flaunted after cosmetic surgery, I wonder if it will maintain its refinement in prison. On the day the court's judgment was delivered, I visited Ryan in prison for the last time. Separated by the thick glass, I looked at him. He wore prison uniform, his hair shaved into a crew cut. Exhausted and dejected, he no longer carried even a trace of his former spirited demeanor. When he saw me, his eyes were filled with resentment. "Are you satisfied now?" he rasped, his voice strained. "Is this what you wanted, to put me in prison and take the company for yourself? Is this what I wanted?" I looked at him, speaking calmly. "Ryan, what I've always wanted was very simple. I wanted a loyal husband and a warm home. But unfortunately, that's something you could never give me. It was you who destroyed everything we had." He fell silent. After a long while, he finally lifted his head. Unexpectedly, there was a glimmer of tears in his eyes. "Serena, we really can't go back anymore?" I looked at him, suddenly feeling it was somewhat ridiculous. To this day, he still asks whether we can go back. "Ryan," I stood up and looked at him one last time, "from the moment you placed the tear of the deep on another woman's hand, we were already past the point of no return. Work hard to reform. 15 years from now, when you get out, perhaps you'll see a different world." After saying that, I didn't look at him again and turned to leave. Behind me came the sound of his desperate cries and shouts. But I didn't look back. My life will no longer pause for this man for even a second. In the first year after the divorce, I poured all my energy into my work. Renaming Yen Brothers Group to Shin Grace Holdings, completely erasing every trace Ryan left behind. I carried out bold reforms, cutting loss-making projects, introducing top-tier teams and cutting-edge technologies, and led the company into the fields of new energy and AI. 3 years later, Shin Grace Holdings successfully listed on Nasdaq, its market value skyrocketing 15-fold, soaring to become the global industry leader. I underwent a complete transformation from Mrs. Ryan into a legendary figure in the business world, with the media eagerly dubbing me the most underestimated female entrepreneur. As for the endings of Ryan and Vivian, they were truly satisfying. Ryan was sentenced to 15 years, charged with embezzlement, fraud, and unexplained sources of assets, along with loan shark debt collection. In prison, he initially thought he could still manage quite well thanks to his old connections, But I had already instructed my lawyer to turn over all the evidence to the disciplinary inspection department. To protect themselves, his so-called old friends quickly distanced themselves from him, and some even stepped forward to expose more of his hidden dealings. As a result, his sentence was extended directly to 20 years. Prison life was hell for him. He was assigned to the most grueling and labor-intensive section, where he spent 10 hours a day moving bricks. His hands grew calloused, his once meticulously maintained handsome face became sun-darkened and rough, and his hair turned gray prematurely. I heard he was terrified of rats, and the prison was plagued with them. Every night, rats would crawl onto his bed. He suffered several mental breakdowns, weeping and begging his cellmates for help, only to be met with ridicule. The former godlike boss can't even tie a necktie properly now? Even more satisfyingly, Vivian was also sentenced to 8 years, due to additional charges of instigating fraud and falsifying credentials. In the women's prison, she completely fell apart. Her surgically altered face, unable to afford maintenance, rapidly sagged and collapsed, earning her the nickname Collapsed Face Sister among everyone. Originally, she hoped to rely on her beauty to find protection inside, but the female inmates despised mistresses the most and gave her special treatment every day, stealing her food, splashing water on her, and waking her up in the middle of the night. I heard she was once forced to kneel and scrub the toilet, crying her heart out, but nobody paid her any attention. The most dramatic moment happened on the rare occasions they could communicate. Ryan still had illusions about Vivian and wrote in a letter, "When I get out, we can start over." But Vivian had long since disowned him, blaming everything on him in her reply, "If it weren't for you being useless, would I have ended up in prison? It's all your fault." Ryan was so enraged that he had a stroke and was admitted to the prison hospital. When he woke up, he went completely mad, murmuring every day, "Serena, I was wrong." As for me, on the day of the IPO bell ringing, I stood under the spotlight, surrounded by the flashing cameras of global media. Nolan stood right beside me, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, gently handing me the hammer. We've been married for 2 years. He is my strongest support and my gentlest harbor. We have a 3-year-old daughter named Grace, a symbol of elegance and new beginnings. After the bell-ringing ceremony, I was interviewed by reporters. One of them asked, "Serena, do you have anything you'd like to say to your ex-husband?" I smiled gently, appearing poised and graceful on camera. "There's nothing to say. People and events from the past were merely stepping stones that made me stronger. Now, I only want to thank those who once hurt me, because they made me who I am today." That night, my photo dominated global financial headlines, with the title, "From Betrayal to Kingmaker, Serena's Queenly Revenge." Upon seeing this news on the prison television, Ryan broke down in tears on the spot. As he was dragged away by the guards, he was still shouting, "Serena. No, Serena. I was wrong." I turn off the TV, hold my daughter, and look out at the dazzling night view. This round, I've won thoroughly, cleanly, and beautifully. From now on, the business world will only remember Serena, and no one will ever mention that laughable ritualistic boss again. Ryan? Vivian? Merely a joke in the dust.